Joining us now, of course, she was a four-time All-American. She's been an Olympian, and now the new head coach of the Arizona Wildcats. Caitlin Lowe back with us with a new title change. I'm getting used to that. How is that title getting used to you?
It's still kind of weird when people say it, but it's been awesome. And having coach still around in some capacity around the athletic department has been great as well. So I'm surrounded by a lot of great people, which made this transition a whole lot easier. So got to give props to everyone too.
What's been like the biggest adjustment you've had to make, if any, at all? I mean, you've been on the staff, so you know how everything works, yet I'm sure there's a bit of an adjustment. What has been one of some of the adjustments you've had to make since taking over?
Well, I joke with everyone that it's the meetings. It's so many meetings. I mean, I think I asked Coach last week because he was at an FCA convention with us. It's like, I just don't feel like you were gone out of the office this much, meeting with people, and your day is full. And I think there's, from an outsider looking into our profession, you don't realize how much happens um, outside of the softball field to make, a program like ours go. And I just actually, Alyssa Palomino came back to visit, and she was talking about that because she's a volunteer at Oregon this year, and kind of got thrown into the office side of things and just didn't realize, how much goes into everything. So, it got upped a little bit. I spent a lot of time in the office, but now it seems like, every hour of your day is accounted for. So, but also great because I think that, coach had me in on a lot of these meetings prior to taking over this job. So he prepared me, but it was kind of crazy getting used to that. And, you're in charge of scheduling everything and making sure everyone's on the same page. And, it took a while in the summertime and throughout the fall, but I'm just blessed to work with great people that made the transition easier.
Now, Mike has a new title, which I've never seen before, but it's pretty appropriate for him, a special advisor to the head coach. First of all, how does that come up? I'm fascinated by that title. And then what special advisor, is that something where you call him up if you need an advice on something? How does that work?
Well, I would have to add that he's the special advisor to head coaches because really throughout this entire semester, he is just at the call of whenever any coaching staff needs him. And, he attends a lot of practices in every single sport just to observe. And I'm pretty sure he's hit up every sport at this school, and how cool. And I remember, as an assistant, his door was a revolving door when he was our coach. People just want to pick his brain, want advice. He's been there. He's been through anything and everything you can possibly imagine in the coaching world, and just has a good head on his shoulders. And now he gets this outsider's perspective, right, of what everything looks like. And I think really it's the greatest blessing for this athletic department is to have him around and have his guidance. So he spends his time either on the golf course or he's in, talking to any and all coaches. And it's been just awesome to have, with little things that pop up and just, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And that's kind of, it's what I used him for when he was here too. So it's just nice to have the transition be, not just, okay, he's gone, but he's still involved in some capacity, which makes life easier.
What's the biggest advice he's giving you, either when you took the job, maybe leading up to it? What's the one thing you take from him that you're applying, that you're going to remind yourself as you're kind of now as the head coach?
Just to be myself. I think that was the biggest thing. It's, I think he tells everybody that, you have a good gut, you've got a good head on your shoulders, you played the game the right way. And he knows, me as a coach, and I could have very easily come in and just, perfectly scripted his practice plans and what he would say, and just to come in and put my own spin on things. And I think you're going to see really a lot of things that were inspired by him, but I'm trying to just kind of stay true to myself and the staff that we are, really, because we added a new assistant and you kind of see a whole new vibe. So I think that was the biggest thing is, as long as you can leave at the end of the day, know you did your best, know you were true to yourself and your team. I think that's pretty valuable.
It was a whirlwind. Obviously, we're at the Women's College World Series. Had the great run there. Your season ends. You come back. The announcements make. He announces his retirement. He holds the press conference. All the alums are there. You're there in that room. And then 24 hours later, you've got your press conference as you're introduced, and you're talking to your peers and the alums. What was that week like for you? Because on the one hand, you're taking over as a head coach, which, it's an incredible opportunity. You're taking over for a person that's meant a lot to you. You're taking over a program that means a lot to you. And you also have been on the players' side, the alum side. You have all the What was that like for you that week?
Oh, it was absolute madness. It was complete chaos, as you can imagine. I equated to, the having kids and just like, you're along for the ride, man. And you're trying to, do your best in that week. And I remember we kind of had exit meetings where they met with coach and then they met with me. And that's when the announcement happened. And so my phone's just like going crazy. And, it was, you never also, if there's any rule in softball is you never follow coach as far as like speaking engagements go. He's the best of the best. But, it was tough for me, I think more so because I was feeling a lot of emotions for him retiring. I was feeling everything that our alumni felt, that the softball world felt. I was feeling that sadness of, what he's brought to our game, and we're just not going to have that in that capacity anymore. He's still going to be heavily involved in our game. But I think, everybody just felt a little bit of, man, like we just watched a legend walk away. So I think that being so close to that press conference or my press conference, that was tough because it was just a roller coaster of emotions. It was exciting, but at the same time, I was feeling all of that too. So kind of just balancing that and obviously wanting to take off, right? And jump into recruiting, jump into talking to our team. It was a lot because the next day I ended up leaving for recruiting. So it was pretty crazy. But at the same time, I mean, talk about just one of the greatest human beings, like how he made it just such an easy transition and wanted really to, make that the best experience for me, and just how selfless he was in the whole process, which just describes him to a T anyway. But an awesome week, a crazy week, and one that I will always remember for sure.
It was an incredible send-off. First of all, congrats to everybody involved in that. That was a memorable send-off, well-deserved for him. And I'll never forget your line. I'm paraphrasing what you said in your presser. He's like, man, I feel bad for whoever's following him. But that's the thing. You're now going to be handling a lot of the media stuff, which he's been so good at. What is that going to be like for you now as you're going to be dealing with, the Arizona media? I've obviously been a part of some of those. I mean, there's a lot of people want to know about Arizona softball. It's one of the most high-profile positions. How is that going to be an adjustment? Is it an adjustment for you at all?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I mean, that's all, the post-game stuff, the pre-game stuff, that's all on me now. And I think when you deal with the media and the fans in Tucson, we have high expectations. But you know what? So do we as a staff. So do we as a team. So I think that comes with the territory. It's what you sign up for when you have this job. And we hash out every performance in the dugout before he goes on those interviews. So I always got a vibe on, how he was feeling going into those things. And, I think it will be an adjustment. Yes. Is it something that I've kind of gotten a taste of being, a player and as assistant? Yes, a little bit, but obviously a whole different kind of, gets a little bit elevated in this seat.
The thing has been so fascinating, even when people have brought up, hey, if he retires, who would take over? Your name always came up from coaches, and they said it's a no-brainer. We've had coaches on here recently from the Pac-12 and even outside the Pac-12 said, yeah, no, okay, that was the right move. People are quick to bring that up. How does that make you feel that you have that much respect from your peers that people say, yeah, no, she's the right person for that job? There was like no debate.
Well, it's obvious. It feels awesome. I think to have people that you respect so highly say that about you, it's a good feeling. And I think that You know, so many people I look to in this profession have paved the way, just in this game, and seeing moms do what I do. Like it's one of those things, right? If you can see it, you can be it. And you know, it wasn't tough choice for me because I just love this game. And I think that's been the thing with this job. You know, I came in as the director of ops, which was not my favorite job. And then I became the volunteer right after that. I wanted to work for free because I wanted to be on the field. And, you know, I just wanted to give back to this program in a way that was meaningful and I was passionate about. So, you know, I've just been excited to be around this team and developing these athletes for so long that, you know, it did feel like a transition, but at the same time, you know, I've just been so in it with this program for so long that just felt so right.
Yeah, you've told the story before about being brought in as director of ops. I think he asked you at a wedding if
Yeah,
you'd be interested, right? And you
he
and you
did.
were and you were kind of honest. You didn't like it, and so eventually you moved into an on-field position. I mean,
Mhm.
it's kind of wild thinking about that. Now looking back on it, like, did it ever cross your mind, hey, I want to be a head coach? When did that cross your mind? Because on the one hand, if you want to be a head coach, obviously it's Arizona, but you're like, hey, this guy's doing pretty well for himself. It's not like this is going to be any, like, how, take me through that process. Cause it's kind of wild that that one conversation at a wedding, it'll change your life in so many ways.
Right. It changed the entire trajectory of my life. And thanks to Autumn Champion, right, for inviting us both. Obviously, she wouldn't leave one of us out. No, it was, you know, it's weird because never in my head did I say, yeah, I really want to be a head coach. It was not like I was working my way up to that. And, you know, I think coaches always made it a point that every day you come to work is a representation of yourself. You know, it's like your interview, and showing up every day matters. And that's one of his biggest life lessons that I think that all of our girls leave with. And, you know, when you show up and you give everything you have to a program, and it's not just, you know, that's Taryn, that's Stacey Iveson, that's people who have been involved with our program for so long. Um, you know, then it becomes a natural progression. But it's just kind of weird how that happened. And I just wanted to pour myself into this program, and never, I mean, shouldn't probably say this, but never did I think like I want to go find a job somewhere else because I want to be a head coach. It just never really crossed my mind because I was so invested in this team. So um, yeah, if that makes me a Wildcat for life, I hope so.
I think so. And then once you took over, obviously the big focus became, well, who are you going to bring in on your staff? And people were speculating. There was some that were trying to like connect dots, like, all right, which Arizona alum is coming, you know, and things like that. Because obviously Taryn was going to be involved. And I personally, without even reaching out to you, I thought to myself, boy, I wonder if she would ask Lauren Lappin. Just because I've seen you two play together in the pros. And I thought, well, she's probably looking for a defensive, somebody who was really good. Well, Lauren's really good. But yeah, I'm just thinking in my own head. I'm not bringing it out loud because I don't know. You're going through the process. And boom, the news comes out that she's the coach. And I'm like, wow, that really makes a ton of sense. That's perfect. Was it as perfect as I thought it would be from the inside? Take us through that thinking process of you deciding to bring in Lauren.
You know, I've just always, I mean, she's one of my good friends. Lauren was in my wedding. Just an amazing human being, great role model, played the game the right way, coaches the game the right way. And we've always stayed in touch about coaching things, you know. And I never knew if she, and I think she didn't know, to be honest, if she wanted to get into this level, Division I competitive, like back in it as she was as a player. She coached with Athletes Unlimited and the Chicago Bandits, the Pro League, and kind of got a taste of that level of athlete, right? And you know, she's always loved the game at every level, but I think was, you know, her fire got ignited being able to coach some of the best. And I think her hesitation was always the recruiting world that Division I softball has, and it's cutthroat, man. It's crazy. And it's funny though, because I thought, you know, I'm gonna have to convince her to be all in for recruiting, after the first couple of weekends, it was like, well, what are we going to do? And how are we going to get so-and-so? And just like in it, her competitive desire took over. And, that was the only thing I doubted, and she crushed it. And really, if we're talking about the X's and O's, she does every single thing that, I would consider, I handle X, Y, and Z, and she handles the rest. And that part was a no-brainer. I knew I could come in, or she could come in and handle the infield, handle the catching, and be an asset for every other part of the game. So I'm not a micromanager. I say, this is what you have, and she runs with it. And I think our infield has made great strides since she's been here.
Well, when I talked to her when she got hired, she mentioned the fact that she was, even though she hadn't been on in plate, was not an alum, she was as familiar with the program because she obviously coached Candrea, playing in the Pac-12 at Stanford against you. Did that familiarity, I'm sure, helped her? Plus, you know each other very well. And yet you probably like the fact that she's got some different ideas bringing into the program. Because I remember you've told me last year the thing that you liked when Taryn came back was she had some different ideas from her previous stops as a coach. How important was that to you?
It was huge. And I think you hit the nail on the head, because her playing for Coach Candrea, it's the respect of that, right? And what he does so well. So bringing that, not trying to come in and overhaul everything, and change what has worked for so well. So I think it's the respect of that, what we've had, and then bringing that new twist, like you said. And talk about energy, man. Let me just tell you, she's the most energetic I've ever seen on the softball field. And it's a great balance, really, between Taryn and I. Taryn has a little bit of that side, but I am here. I mean, I am locked in and serious, and you're going to see me right here pretty much the whole game. And she comes in and she brings a whole new dynamic to our team, which the girls responded very well to. So I've been nothing but pleased with how she's come in and just kind of run with it and really taken on those roles and grabbed on. So, and she's a lifelong learner too, which I think is really important in this job. I think, for someone who was arguably the greatest of all time, he went to conventions and went to every single meeting, and, he showed us the right way. And I think it's always important to make sure that we do that as a staff as well.
It was going to be a unique transition this year because you just had a great senior class that had left a legendary mark in your program, which is saying something. I mean, that's saying a lot. Let's first talk about the senior class, because speak to them, and some of them I know will still be involved with the program on the staff, but just talk about the legacy they left for this program, that now you've got to have a young team coming in 22, but still, what a great benchmark this senior class left for you, the returners.
Yeah, it was definitely huge. I think probably, I mean, I don't want to say one of the best classes, I think, as a whole, well-rounded. We had such good offense, pitching, defense, and they were a force to be reckoned with. And I wouldn't have wanted to be on staff at any other school to play us, because that was a tough scouting report to write. Great people. And yeah, it's just, I think it's a blessing what came out of COVID, because we had a very young freshman class that came in, and solid recruiting class that got to learn from them, and they never would have gotten that experience. So, on the one side, you can look at it like, yeah, they didn't get as many chances, but I tell you what, each of them looked at it as an opportunity. And I'm very proud of them for that fact, that they took it upon themselves to be sponges all of last year and soak up anything and everything, the good and the bad, to be honest, how they wanted to play. And, sometimes that's the greatest thing, to be able to observe the game from the dugout, because you kind of get a whole new perspective on the game. So it was huge for our young kids. And yes, the legacy, it's crazy. And how fun to be at practice with a group like that, especially when you have talent, young talent coming in and talent at the top, and some really great mix in the middle. So it was a fun team, and a 5-class team that we'll never get again, but it was a really cool experience.
Obviously, that's great leadership on that group. Who are the leaders on this team, or is that still evolving? Who is somebody kind of established as leaders, whether it be vocal leaders or by example? How is that process going?
I would have to say still evolving, and we have so many great people in the mix, and a lot of them, and I think in their own different ways. I think you've seen Charlize blossom into that role behind the plate. She's using her voice more. Izzy Pacho as well, man. She didn't get as many innings, but she's a worker, and she knows the right things to say, and just so proud of her growth. In the infield, we've got Allie Skaggs, who did get some time because Raina got hurt last year, and she stepped in, was uber confident. Nothing really phased her. She's definitely that steady Eddie in the infield. I could say the same about Carly Scoopin and our seniors. I think you're going to see Hannah Bowen step into a role she's never had before in the circle. So here's the thing. I think, and I can't leave out Janelle too, who's just steady out there, quiet, calm, confident, and starts off the game the right way. But what I've challenged them with, it's easy when we're doing it in practice. And I think what it comes down to during the season is who's going to be there when things get hard, because things get hard. They get hard every year. And who's going to be the one to step in when it's uncomfortable and maybe they're not having their best week or month. Who's going to be that one standing up there saying, we got this, like, let's go. And I think that's when you'll see our leaders emerge. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, you mentioned Charlize, 348 average, 18 homers, 57 RBIs. We talked last year. You had two All-American catchers, with Deja obviously getting a lot of the attention, and rightfully so. But Charlize, who has a great background in her family, her dad was a Major League Baseball catcher. Her sister, obviously, Arizona State, and an Olympian now at Team Mexico. Did you expect that power coming from her? I think everybody kind of expected her to be a great defensive catcher and things like that, but the power game that she brought, just talk about her overall game, because you were able to use her as a DP a lot. And I wonder this year now, what's your kind of plans? Do you want her behind the plate? Do you want to split her up between behind the plate and DP because of her bat?
Well, first question, yes, absolutely. I expected that kind of power out of her. I think what I didn't expect, and what was a great surprise, is how just smart, intelligent she is at the plate. And, she doesn't try to do too much. If you watch her take batting practice, she's peppering balls to right center, working on her oppo game, because she knows that's going to help her out once she faces live pitching. So I think to have someone with really great tools that can also think the game. And, I spent a lot of time chatting with her in the dugout last year. And I said, Charlotte, one of the ways you've grown is, you come to me and you tell me what you want to do. And I love that. That doesn't happen sophomore year. That's rare. So that, I am very impressed with that. As far as using her, she will be our catcher. And then it's just making sure that we get someone else in the mix to, as it is a long season, make sure we keep everybody fresh too. And we have a lot of great options offensively to keep, people in and out of the lineup. But, leadership wise, she's used her voice. And I think that's the biggest growth that I've seen from her. But man, when are you lucky enough to have, two catchers that are at national team camp this year? That's pretty cool. And it's saying a lot. So kudos to them. And you hit it on the head with the great family that she has. And she was brought up the right way, taught the game the right way, and just really does a great job emulating that. And really having people follow her is the biggest thing, because I don't think you're a leader unless you have people follow you.
Yeah. Janelle, you mentioned me on you with 439, mostly at the top of the order, 483 on base right away, immediate impact. And then, Scoopin, you mentioned 343, 9 homers, 38 RBIs. I'll never forget Coach Candrea, one of the media availabilities last year, said no one has as much power hitting the ball out of the park than she has in Arizona softball, which was like, everybody was like, whoa, did he just say that? And people are like, wait a minute, what do you, like Jenny Dalton Hill's like, wait a minute, what, did he just say that? But talk about those two, because those are two youngsters you're going to depend on this year, and were made immediate impact last year to this veteran team last year.
And sometimes that's the hardest part, is coming back after a season like that. But two ladies who have great heads on their shoulders and so mature for their age, which I think is going to play a big role for us this year, is that, yeah, we have a young team, but we have a hungry team, and we have a team that knows really what it takes. And, I think it's being themselves and not trying to do too much. And I think that's one thing that could get in our way, is not trying to be last year's team, not trying to launch balls out of the park every single at bat. And, with all three of them, I think they've only scratched the surface of what they could be. So I think just staying true to themselves and keeping on that trajectory. And, I think the cool thing is when you take on the leadership role and you do it the right way, it takes pressure off your shoulders. I know that sounds weird, but when you're more worried about how the team is going to react in given situations, all of a sudden I'm not caring as much about myself. So I think, if they can do that the right way, it's going to actually help them out in the future.
Who are some of the new faces that fans could expect to contribute to this team in 22? Because obviously you've always had somebody new that comes in and contributes. We mentioned obviously what Carly did and what Janelle did. Who are some of the new faces to look out for this upcoming season?
We have quite a few, and I think they're all going to get their time. So that's the cool thing about this team. It's almost like next man up, right? And, we had a lot of people play in the fall that really crushed it. Some people going through some injuries. We brought in a transfer from Seattle, Bailey Thompson, who was awesome to add on just because she's got this poise, right, that a super senior is going to play with, and confidence. And she just walks into the box differently. I think she's going to be great. Our freshman class surprised me, I have to say. I think, I thought there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve, a little bit of a freak out moment, but I credit our current team for taking them under their wing and showing them the ropes. And, Paige Dimler worked out in the outfield, great hands at the plate. And I think with all of our hitters, Allie and Amber too, it's just a matter of seeing good pitching and getting those reps under the belt. But, Allie Enright had a good fall. Amber Tobin, just killer in the infield, man. Great hands. So I can see using her in a lot of different ways. And then Maddie Ellish, I think you're going to see her get quite a few innings, and she brings an entirely different look than our whole pitching staff, which is great. And maturity wise, I was very impressed with how composed she was, not just in our fall games, but in our inter squad scrimmages. Because sometimes, and a lot of people know this at this level, our inter squad scrimmages are harder than anything else. It's like getting through the lineup that's seen you over and over and over again. So, very impressed with all of them. And I think, as February brings new challenges. So seeing how they react in those high pressure situations.
How much of that transition making it easier on them is the fact that you've recruited most of them, right? You recruited all of them. You're familiar with everybody. It's, a lot of times a head coach that takes over a program, they're inheriting somebody else's recruits, and it takes them a couple years before they get their players in. So there's that adjustment period. That's not the case here. They know you. They know the staff. How big has that been as an advantage for speeding up a process with this young, the nucleus here, the youth here you've got?
I think it's huge. And I think, when you develop relationships over the phone and watching them play all growing up, I think people don't understand how important that is. And just making sure you're part of their process. We can talk to them junior year, just making sure you're part of the process that whole time, and not just, okay, hey, you showed up on campus. It's constantly building relationships in all facets of our game. So I think that was huge. I think it was an easier call to make when I know them, I know their families, I know why they chose Arizona for a lot of the reasons that I chose Arizona. So I think it was important, and they were ready to hit the ground running when they got here.
You mentioned obviously Hannah Bowen won 10 games, 2 ERA last year, really stepped up there last year, especially they were reporting with Denham. Talk about your staff. You mentioned Maddie Ellish being a part of that, a new outlook for the staff, some youth, but a lot of upside and potential.
Obviously, Hannah Bowen is going to be our leader. I think not just with her stuff, but just her mentality, composure, the fire she plays with. If you've ever seen an important game of ours that she's thrown, there's a lot of fist pumps, and she feels the game. And, one of the greatest things is she comes in and she reads hitters. A lot of people just throw what the catcher sign is, but she feels the game and she is so heavily involved in it. And then you come in and we have a lot of different looks, and I'm excited to see Devin Netz throw this year. Not a lot of people don't know she kind of was going through some nagging injuries last year. And now she's back, she's fresh, and talk about competitive fire, desire. She wants to kick your butt when she steps on the mound. And you can see that come through in her play, whether she's pitching or hitting. And then Jesse Fonts and Maddie Ellish, I think you're going to see different looks from them. And, I think the biggest thing with our pitching staff is they're ready to prove themselves. And when you go into the season that way, like, you want to prove people wrong in some instances and prove what we're all about. So I'm excited for that experience for them. I'm excited to have a good leader for the four of them. I think it's going to be a matter of managing that well. And that's going to be a new challenge for me too.
And how fortunate is it you have Taryn already in place? So there's no adjustment there either. You two have known each other for so long. In fact, 2022 will mark the 15-year anniversary of their national championship season in 2007. I think she had a pretty good run in there, ESPY award-winning run that she had there. But having her on the staff already, and you two, obviously, you've talked about how you both complement each other so well, that she does some different things. You learn from her, she learns from you. But here you are as a first-year head coach, and you already have that taken care of, whereas a lot of first-year head coaches have to hire, in your situation, a pitching coach. And to have somebody you trust like her has had to help you throwing all this.
I think that's probably one of the toughest decisions people make when they get this job is hiring a pitching coach, because one, I don't think, there's a whole lot out there. I think that there's really good people at their craft, and man, you're lucky if you get one. And I think, yes, we've built a great relationship. A lot of times I can look at her and I know what she's thinking already. We've just been together for so long. Someone that just truly cares about her pitchers, not just on the mound, but off the field as well. And she does a great job of building those relationships. Someone who's been there before is just, knows the pressures of the World Series, knows the pressures of the Pac-12. I think it's important. And I think you can see that kind of trickle down to our staff. And I'm excited because this is a staff, that's young and that wants to get after it. And I think our coaching staff feels that a little bit as well.
I've spoken to many coaches that if they're head coaches of their alma mater, and they said one of the things, the adjustment is to block off that pressure of being an alum, because you have such a passion for the school that sometimes that could overwhelm the job you got to do. And, some of them have even admitted, that kind of scared them off at times. They kind of were worried about that. How do you kind of manage that? You've been an alum, you've been on the staff, but at the same time, you're the head coach of the program. You have no higher expectation yourself, but how do you not let that get overboard, too out of, deflect from what your job is?
I think it's throwing myself into this current team, and it always is that way. I think, it could be really easy to say, this is how we used to do things and this is how it used to be. And really, like, I think at least the way you coach is determined by the team you're given every single year, the team you recruited every single year. And, we're coaching this team different than we coached last year's team, then we coached different than the last year's team. And coach was always so great at that, to reinvent himself, if you will, to each team's needs. So I think that's important. I think it's important that, the alumni too, they know how much I care about what happens to this program. And they know how much I care about what Coach Candrea built here. And I think, there's pressure, but I think at the same time, I kind of feel like I have an army of people behind me that are ready to attack this season. So that part, it's tough, but at the same time, like if I didn't have coach in my corner, if I didn't have people in my corner, I think it would feel a whole lot harder.
How have you evolved as a coach? How do you think you're different today than you were, say, when you first started, or maybe even a few years ago?
I think a lot of ways. I think One of the things, one of Coach's favorite comments was always, when the student arrives, the teacher appears. And that was a hard concept for me to grasp, because you want to come in and you want to help. But at the same time, everyone is on their own timeline when they're ready to learn things, and when they're ready to kind of sometimes get out of their own way. Right. So I think I've evolved to understand. I think in the fall, you do a lot of observing, you do a lot of learning about the team that you have, about the hitters, the way they think, the way they process information. And you don't jump in ready to go right away, I think, with some things, because you got to trust, who you recruited as well. So one of my favorite things to do now is learn about our hitters in the fall so that I can help them in the spring. And I think that's one of the biggest things I take pride in when we're talking about game day is, however many hitters go into that game, I know I can hopefully be an asset to each one of them and in very different ways. And if that means sometimes getting the heck out of their way, Palomino is a perfect example. Don't really talk to me. And if she comes to me twice a year with the question, then great, got you. But, I think knowing those and building those relationships is really important. And, we're in a people business. And I think that's one of the biggest things is caring about people first before caring about them as softball players. It really sounds cliche, but it just really makes a difference.
And learning to adapt to each person's strengths and weaknesses. Some people are personality wise are different. So you kind of have to figure out how to get to them, because not everybody's the same. And I've always known that a lot of players that get into coaching, that's one of the challenges is, why aren't they figuring it out like I did? Well, they're not you. They're different. Everybody's different. How long did it take you to adapt and figure that out? And the process of being patient. Some players might take them a little while longer to figure out certain things, where there's others figure it out quicker. Some players maybe like that tough love, if you will. Some may not. Some might need more encouragement. It's a lot of a balancing act, because this game in so many ways is so much about the psychological part of it more than physical, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The mental game is so huge. And I don't even think until recently we've put as much weight on it, right? Like, I think now the mental game is at the forefront. And we're making it a point to make sure that we handle everything that's involved in a student athlete's experience, not just, cage reps and ground balls and just making sure, as a whole, they feel like they're taken care of. And, I realized that very early on. You're going to have kids that are out there on their off days, hitting extra at night. Then you're going to have some people that come in and you say you got a round of 5, they take 3 and they're good, and I think looking at it as, are they getting what they need? Do they need to make adjustments? But really, we have this year, especially a very professional team that kind of walks in, knows what they need, they get out, which is very cool to see. It kind of reminds me of the pro league just a little bit, but it took me a couple of years, I think, to really grasp onto that. But at the same time, it's like, I felt that as a player. You have Kelly Kretschmann who comes in and she doesn't need to warm up. I mean, I don't know how. She was the oldest one on the field, right? And she doesn't need to warm up, and she still can drop a sneaky bunt and beat it out and hit a home run. And, sometimes that was maddening. But at the same time, it's just like, okay, like that's what she needed. To be ready to play her best softball. Is that what I needed? Absolutely not. But doesn't mean it's wrong. Just means it's their own way.
Everybody has their own way. Scheduling wise, some people might have said, hey, you got a young team, maybe you go easy on the schedule. Nope, not you. You're going right in, digging it right into it. You got Southern Utah, you got Alabama coming in the first weekend in the Candrea Classic. I wonder how they came up with the name. In that tournament there. You got Kentucky coming in during part of your schedule. Long Beach State won the Big West. You're going to be playing at Mary Nutter. Oklahoma is on that schedule as well. You got Iowa State coming in. Texas State, they're really good with the Coach Woodard and what they have. UNLV, I think you're familiar with that coach over there. I don't know. You have some history with that coach over there. Talk about the schedule you built there, because it's pretty challenging. You're challenging your team right from the get-go.
I think it's important, to be honest. I think especially before we get to conference, it's important to see what this team's made of. I think it's good to see, we're going to have a measuring stick very early on. And I think people are hungry to face these good teams. I think we're really hungry to start season in general and to kind of prove what we're all about. But I think it was important to have a good balance to make sure we get challenged early on. And the Pac-12, once you get there, there aren't any off weekends. There aren't any off games. And I even challenged that, a lot of teams on our schedule, nothing's going to be handed to us. We got to get after it every single inning of every single game. So I'm excited about our schedule. I'm excited about good games early on. And I think our fans are hungry because they had to sit at home a lot of last year too. So I think just excited about attacking this year and seeing where we're at come opening day.
I'm really, as a fan, I'm really excited. The March 12th weekend, you got UNLV coming in, Christy Fox bringing her team in. They're going to be really good. They could be a Mountain West contender. But here's your former teammate, one of your friends. I mean, this is going to be a pretty cool moment. Two alums playing each other. It's going to be unique. I don't know if you've ever played each other, but certainly never played each other as both of you had coaches. That's going to be a pretty cool moment in that stadium with probably, I'm guessing, who somewhere watching in the stands or in the club suite or wherever he gets to sit.
I don't think he's going to miss a game. He didn't miss the ball game. He was there early too. Don't think I didn't notice. Yeah, UNLV, it's going to be special. We actually, we traveled to UTA when she was at UTA, and she was having a killer season then. I think that was one of the years she stayed undefeated for, right up until the end, was almost one of the last teams. But just so passionate about what she does. I got to hang out with her and her family when we were in the convention in Vegas, and we've been best friends ever since. We roomed together in college our freshman year. So it's been great to see her grow and her path to get to this point. And she's a stud, and she's going to have a good team, and she's going to come in here and expect to win. So as with all of our opponents. So I'm looking forward to that game. It's always special to get a homecoming, but we're going to get after it.
Has she been back there as a coach before?
Yes, she's played in tournaments of ours before. Okay. And so she has, but I don't think she's been to our new stadium though. So that'll be.
Oh, the renovate. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect time, 15-year anniversary, and then acknowledge her, and then boom, then you go ahead and try to beat her.
Yeah, gotta try, gotta get after it.
By the way, because I've talked to you and Tara, you both said you both got competitive at practice.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're adding Lauren to that mix. I mean, that's got to be the most competitive coaching staff practice probably in the country. I can't be that far off, right? I mean, you three are pretty competitive human beings.
Yeah, we're pretty competitive. We actually we have a fun day after our last day of team practice, and I ordered these bubble suits for the team, and so we threw them on, and you just like sprint into people and like knock each other over, and at the end Lauren and I put them on. We went full-fledged right after each other, and she won, I'm sad to say. I think I approached it wrong strategically, but yeah, competitive practice for sure. I think that's the way it is across the country with good teams. So and really what you see, I think, is it trickles down to the players, and that's when it matters. The players have a competitive practice, and they truly enjoy coming to work every day, which is not always the case when you talk about top to bottom of a lineup. And the people who need to be picked up a little bit, it's handled within the team. And, right now we are very much so a player-led team, and I hope that continues throughout the whole season.
Pac-12, I think, the bond that you all as coaches have, that's some of the things I've picked up from talking to some of the Pac-12 coaches, because almost everybody in the league is an alum of where they're coaching. I mean, Jessica Allister came back to Stanford to revive the program. Chelsea Spencer back at Cal. I mean, Heather Tarr obviously at Washington, on and on and on. You're now included in that. Speak of the bond in the league. You've been in the league now for a while. You've been in the league as a player, as an assistant, now as the head associate, and as a head coach now. Speak of that bond, because there seems to be a special pride there about, again, you're the league that has the most alum head coaches in the sport.
Well, I think, if you talk to all of them, I'm sure there's the answer would be the same. And we're just so very proud of what it means to represent this conference and our universities. And, we came from when it was dominant, and I think we want to make sure that we stay at the top of this game. And I think we are all taking great pride in that. And then for me, it's great to have them as examples of how to do it well, do it the right way. What rock star women we have leading in college softball, women who, it was great for me to see can do it all. You can have a family and balance and still be able to be a rock star coach. So I think it was important for me to see that and how they handle themselves. And just what a great classy group of women to jump into this with.
I'm curious, as coaches in the league, what are some of the things you want to see from the league overall? There's been a lot of changes. The NCAA, obviously the Women's College World Series schedule now has been changed to get some more rest there after obviously what transpired last year. So there'll be some days off there extended. There's going to be instant replay in some of these conferences is now optional. What are some of the topics you all as coaches are talking about to make the league better and overall for the sport?
The instant replay was a huge one that we're trying to get. That's on my to-do list this week, to hopefully add that to our season this year and to our stadium. And I think making our, as far as our conference, we all want to go into the postseason with great RPI, with a great argument for why we should all be in the postseason. So I think it's, how do we structure our seasons accordingly and take care of business so that we can be dominant top to bottom? And I think it's important, to have that as a whole. I mean, I think you see the SEC tries to get every single team in every single year, and they do it a lot. So I think just being smarter about choices that we make, but also taking care of business. And when you walk into those rooms, everybody wants to take care of business. So we have a passionate group, and we're ready to just, take off and make the Pac-12 what it should be and what it's been. And I think, dominant, but let's get better every single year. And I think everybody wants to do that.
Yeah. And replay would be huge. I know Coach Perez has been openly big on that. Over there. How big is that to have replay as part of the game in postseason and now possibly as well in the regular season? Because this game is faster than ever before. The athletes are better than ever before. And in the umpires, defense, it is a lot harder to umpire a lot of these plays.
Well, it's huge. And I think anytime we have the opportunity to get the important right, I mean, it's so big for our sport. There's been so many years of the World Series where you're like, no, it came down to that. And I think it's important. And I think for us as a conference, it's really important to get good at that, because it's a process, and there's going to be a learning curve. We don't want to just get to the postseason and say, surprise, now we got to learn how to do this. So I think it's important for us to challenge ourselves to have everyone be a part of that, and as soon as possible make sure that we get our stadiums up to date. But really, I want to get some experience with that under my belt and under my staff's belt, so that we're prepared when it comes to postseason time.
So the out of the box rule also tweaked now, where instead of an automatic out, if you're out of the box, it's a strike. Do you like that?
It's a terrible rule. It should never have been. I don't think it was ever a problem, the out of the box situation. If the whole foot's out of the box, call them out. And I vocally said that for a while. I think the rule got better. I still think it should go back to what it was, and for them to just call it. I think we put a lot of pressure on umpires' shoulders because it's an impossible call. I mean, if you think about everything that they have to think about in the present moment and then still worry about that, you don't see it in our game with the pitching lane or foul ball. It's unprecedented, and I don't love it. I know my slappers know I don't love it. But yeah, I think it did a bad job of slowing our game down in a lot of instances, and created a lot of confusion over TV too, as a fan watching. So I would like to see it go away entirely, but I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with me.
Is there too many rules in the game? That, we got a great product as it is, but this comes up with obstruction, right? Because that's been a hot topic as well. The illegal pitches. Is there too much of that stuff? Are we putting too much in the umpire's head? Maybe we should make it simpler. After all, baseball, there's not as much complicated rules like there is in softball. Is there something to that?
Maybe I think the rules are fine. I think it's the clarity and the consistency of enforcing them. That's not too clear. I think you've seen that with our pitching rules, like what are we going to call? What are we not going to call? Does it matter, what kind of umpire we have and if they're going to call it? I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of inconsistency and not a lot of clarity for us as coaches, how to teach our players, according to what is going to get called. So that's the tough part, is relaying that information to players and in a clear way and saying, this is how it will be called. And when I don't think it's necessarily the case with everything.
No question about that. We can spend hours on all that. Yeah. Last thing, what's going to be the keys for your team to accomplish your internal goals? What are some of the keys as you get into the season to accomplish, to help accomplish all your internal goals?
I think it's going to be us kind of putting our heads down and just going to work. And I think that's in our personality. It's in our nature of this team. We kind of just quietly go about our business and just get our stuff done. And I think staying true to ourselves in those moments and not trying to be any of the teams of the past of Arizona softball. I think you're going to see a lot of hitters who try to spray the ball around the field. They're not going to just try to launch balls over the park. So I think staying true to ourselves and what we bring to the table, not teams that they've seen in the past. And, I would never want Janelle to be Alyssa Palomino, and for good reason. Right. So I think just staying true to themselves and to be honest, it's going to be a challenge for me and for us to stay true to ourselves too in the tough moments. And I think that's when we're going to see our leaders emerge as players. And I think that's when our staff needs to step up. So the cool thing is I love that this team is young and hungry, because I think our staff is young and hungry. So I hope we stay that way throughout the whole year.
Well, I speak for, I think, a lot of softball fans. We're excited to see you and the team out there in 2022, but we're super excited for you being the head coach to the title. I think you're well deserving of it. I'm super excited for you personally. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time. You got family time, you got the softball time, but I appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to seeing you down the road.
Thank you so much. And it's always a pleasure being on your program.